Section 9.5, Day 2, Solving Quadratic Equations by Using the Quadratic Formula. Essential question, how do you use the quadratic formula to solve a quadratic equation? So we are going to use, again, the quadratic formula to determine where our parabola would intersect the x-axis. And our equation is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. All right, solve using the quadratic formula. Round your answers to the nearest tenth. All right, before we can begin solving this equation, we need to make sure that our a, b, and c values are all on the left-hand side of our equation. So right now, we have that minus or negative 20 on the right. We need it equal to 0. So I'm going to add 20 on both sides. And now our new equation will be x squared minus 12x plus 20 equals 0. Then I'm going to go ahead and label my a, b, and c values. So my a value is 1. My b value is negative 12. And my c value is 20. All right, so now I'm going to start plugging the values into my quadratic formula. So x equals negative b, so we have minus a negative 12, so really that's going to end up turning positive, but I'm going to leave it like that for right now, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 12 squared, I'm going to put the negative 12 in parentheses, minus 4 times my a value, which is 1, my c value, which is 20, all over 2 times a, so 2 times 1. Biggest thing when solving these is you just have to go slow and be very careful because it's easy to make small mistakes. So now we're going to start doing some simplifying. So I've got x equals, that minus a negative 12 will become a positive 12, plus or minus the square root. Negative 12 squared is 144. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times 20 is negative 80. And then over 2a, so 2. Then I'm going to do one last step of simplifying because I can subtract the 144 minus the 80. So 12 plus or minus the square root of, and then 144 minus 80 is 64 over 2. All right, now I am going to find my two solutions. So when I'm finding my two solutions, I'm going to make one of them addition, and then the other one the subtraction. That's how I get the two solutions. So I'm going to go over here. So x equals 12, and then I'm going to do plus, and then the square root of 64 is 8. And then I'm going to divide that by 2. So then I end up with x equals 12 plus 8 is 20. 20 divided by 2 is 10. So there's one of my solutions. And then my other solution, I'm going to go x equals, and then 12 minus the square root of 64, which is 8 again, over 2. So then I have 12 minus 8, which is 4. 4 over 2 is 2. So keep in mind that both of these were the same. We just had one with addition and then one with subtraction. And that is how we ended up with our two solutions. So this parabola, if you graph it in a graphing calculator or by hand, would cross the x-axis or intersect the x-axis at positive 10 and positive 2. So that is where the parabola intersects the x-axis. So those are your two solutions. All right, x squared minus 6x equals negative 9. So I'm going to do the same first step where I need to get my a, b, and c values all on the left because right now it is not equal 9 to both sides. And then I've got x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. My a value, once again, is 1. My b value is negative 6. And my c value is 9. Now we are going to plug it into our formula. X equals negative b, so minus a negative 6, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 6 squared, minus 4ac, so times 1 times 9, all over 2a, or 2 times 1. All right, I'm going to start simplifying in step 2. So the minus a negative 6 becomes a positive 6, plus or minus the square root. Negative 6 squared is 36. Remember, a negative number squared is always a positive. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times 9 is negative 36. All over 2. And then in step 3, I'm going to simplify that square root. And I'm going to end up with 0. If you end up with 0 under your square root, you are going to end up with just one solution. So if this is a 0, then you are going to only have one solution, because if I do 6 plus the square root of 0 divided by 2, or 6 minus the square root of 0 over 2, I'm always going to end up with the same answer. It doesn't matter which one I do. So if I do 6 plus or minus, the square root of 0 is just 0. So no matter what, I am always going to get the answer of just 3 for that one. So 6 plus 0 divided by 2 is 3. 6 minus 0 divided by 2 is also 3. So this parabola intersects with the x-axis one time at positive 3. So if you end up with a 0 under your radical, you are going to have only one solution. If your discriminant is 0, it is just one solution. All right, and this third one is already equal to 0, but you'll notice that there is something missing from it. We are missing one of our values. We have our x squared value. What we don't have is just our x value in the middle. So you're going to put a 0 for your x value, and then plus 6 equals 0. So that means A is 1, B is 0, and C is 6. Let's plug it into the formula. X equals negative B, so negative 0, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A is 1 times C is 6, all over 2 times A, or 2 times 1. All right, first step of solving. Negative 0 really is just 0. You could completely get rid of it in the problem. I'll leave it in there just as a placeholder, but you could eliminate it if you wanted to. 0 squared is obviously 0. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times 6 is negative 24. And then over 2. Simplify your square root. So 0 minus 24 is negative 24. Put that over 2. If your discriminant or your radical is a negative, that is no solutions. You cannot take the square root of a negative number, so it wouldn't be possible to do 0 plus the square root of negative 24, because you would get an error in your calculator. You can't take the square root of a negative number. So if your discriminant, the number underneath the square root, is negative, you are going to end up with no solutions. If you get a 0 for your discriminant under the square root, you are going to end up with one solution. And then you'll notice on the first problem we did the square root of 24, when it's positive, that is where we came up with two solutions. So a positive number means two solutions. 0 is one solution. A negative is no solutions. Summary. Let's go back to our question here. So, how do you use the quadratic formula to solve a quadratic equation? So we'll say to solve a quadratic equation, use the formula x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac